Let me record this just so we have it. There we go. So welcome everybody. So first of all, great to see everybody's faces. I hope everyone has had a good couple of weeks, or in some cases months off, because I know, depending on who you are, you've done different things. First of all, the big stuff. I just want to get to kind of how the season is going to be set up, at least again for the foreseeable future, and that is. For the moment, we will be doing everything as you guys should have received. You'll receive all of your calendars via a new online platform called TeamBuildr. If you have not yet received an email to sign up or register for TeamBuildr, you should have one. Everybody that is registered for the group should have received one. And that will sort of push you to create your username, which will be your email address, and a password, and you'll create your own password that is totally controlled by you guys. That is not something, I mean, we can change something for you if you absolutely needed to change it in the background. We do have all the users information set up, but we don't set that up for you guys. That's totally yours, and we don't know your password or anything, so you guys can do whatever you want with that. If you guys have questions about TeamBuildr, I'm happy to review any of that on tonight's call. If you want to do that, we can set up a future conversation with just you individually if you need it. But it's fairly intuitive, and it will have all of your training calendars in it, as well as pardon me, it'll have all your training calendars, as well as now all the kind of the big new thing, which is a full strength and conditioning and strength and mobility program that will be mixed into the season, along with some additional stuff for some stretching, some exercises, and some drills. And that is all going to be also on TeamBuildr. The thing that's kind of cool about TeamBuildr, and the reason why we decided to go with this, is because it gives us this flexibility to do more with the training program. So something we've really wanted to do for a long time, and good or bad, we're sort of forced down a path with COVID-19 to sort of adapt and to change things and to change how we did things. So in a good way, it I think will be kind of a neat thing to use for the future. So that's sort of the TeamBuildr piece. Does anybody have any question, like immediate question about TeamBuildr, or not know what I'm talking about, or think I'm completely confusing you, or are we good with that part? Everyone sort of makes sense? Okay.
Julie threw a question in the chat that I also had. If we already had a
Yeah.
team account with like the strength stuff with B, do we have to do anything different, or will it all auto roll?
I was going to get to you guys next. So there is a list of exactly 20 people who were already in TeamBuildr. Someone named Annie Hensley is on it. Someone named Julie Krause is on it. So you guys are both on that list. So basically, if you had an account, you will start to see things probably. The chance you'll see it today, or even sometime tonight. It will probably be likely sometime tomorrow during the day, and I apologize for that. The reason it's like that is because basically what happens is when you create it's not an account issue, it's a calendar issue. So basically what happens is when you're put into the system and you are getting any sort of exercises or strength information from BE, that creates kind of like a moment in time, and that becomes your reference point. And then what we did was we brought in the Run Project calendar, and that sort of overrides it. But you have to tell this to be overridden. Like you have to say to this stuff, you're not ruling the roost anymore. So what we're doing now in the background is we're going back into the accounts of those 20 people, of which both of you are, and correcting that. So you guys will start to see everything now flow in via the Run Project calendar, which will include, again, all this other strength stuff. And then if you were to be doing additional things at BE that would require it to be delivered via TeamBuildr, it would reside as you would expect it to alongside the Run Project calendar. The problem is they got there first, so that's what's taking over right now. So that's why you guys probably have a blank calendar. Actually, you're probably not seeing anything. So we are aware of it. We sadly knew it going in. We just needed to fix it. It's a workaround in the back end. So like I said, hopefully by tomorrow it should be worked out, and you guys will see everything. If for any reason it isn't, guys, shoot me a message. But we know it. The list is that we already know who's on it, and we're already in the process of fixing it. So that's the issue. Sorry about that. But thank you for asking about it. So the team builder piece then sounds like everybody's pretty good with it. I would highly recommend you use it. I know that, maybe for some people it's not, um, you don't want another thing or register for something else. I will tell you, and this isn't me blowing smoke. This isn't me trying to say like, just to sell you on something. It's a very, very cool program, very cool app. Actually, if you have also used, they have a really good mobile app that you can download, and it's honestly, I mean, I've been messing around with it for a couple weeks, and it's pretty flawless. It really doesn't have issues, doesn't seem to have a lot of lag time, and it really allows you to kind of have everything you need at your disposal, whether you're, in front of your computer, out the road, traveling, whatever. So it really is kind of neat, and you don't get bombarded with messages and emails and stuff like that. All of those preferences and whatnot, if you do want like email reminders, like it'll remind you you have a workout today if you want it to. You can also have it text you that information. But if you decide you don't want that, you can change that preference and you won't get all these messages. I mean, I get one message a week, basically. That's it. So it's pretty cool. I highly recommend trying it out if you like it. So that is the team builder piece, and that's sort of the biggest change. But that change, like I said, allows us to then now add in the strength and mobility piece, which is huge, which we've wanted to do for a really long time as well. And that is, you know, most of us who run with some regularity, kind of already know this. I'm not telling you something you don't know, but we've always been of the belief and kind of built this training program around the fact that there's more to it than just running, right? And to be a better, stronger athlete, and or depending if you're a runner or a walker, it does require more than just miles on the road. And so this is a very unique opportunity that we had to now introduce this piece to it in a very digestible way. And that's been the hard part is, how can we do this to a way that, somebody doesn't want to have to come to the gym, or somebody doesn't want to have to, have a weight room in their house or that type of a thing. So this is a really great way to be able to have this other aspect of training right at your disposal when you want it, where you want it, and then of course use it to support your training. So I again highly suggest you play around with some of the exercises. If it's not something that you're used to doing, it's a great way to sort of introduce yourself to it. It's not very aggressive, but it will do a lot and go a long way to supporting your run. So highly recommend it if you guys can take a shot at it. And then, so that's sort of the training piece. The things that have sort of stayed the same as, we'll still have, workouts. The schedule itself will look very similar. So, Tuesdays will be I'll start on what we call the first day of the week. So we'll start on Monday. Mondays will usually be an easy effort kind of recovery day. Tuesdays will be your workout day. So, more specificity, and that will typically focus on speed and power. Wednesdays will be more focused on strength, and that's where you will see the majority of those exercises come up in your calendar. Thursday will be another sort of easy effort recovery day. Friday will be mostly cross training with a bit of core and other aspects mixed into it. Saturday will be your long run day. And then Sunday will be a mix of sort of easy stretching, light core, and just kind of mobility stuff. Just to, you might see some foam rolling stuff pop up in there and that type of thing to wind your day down. You can also use Sunday, as we've typically used it, as a rest day if you want to do nothing at all. That's totally fine. But some of the light stuff would be, go a long way as well to help you get through your training season. So that's how the week will be organized. We will now address the elephant in the room. And no, I'm not talking about myself. Caroline, you're supposed to laugh. Go ahead. There you go. Perfect. So the question, of course, is going to come up. What about in-person training? So will we be resuming meeting in person? The answer is we hope so. The immediate answer is not right now. And that's not because I'm trying to save myself time or energy or anything like that. Honestly, there's much more going into this right now than we typically do, which is great. I'm glad we have the opportunity to do this. The in-person stuff we hope to resume as soon as we're honestly able. Um, what does that rely on? That relies on a lot of what's obviously going on with COVID-19 and where we are at as far as regulations and laws and whatnot that can preclude us from doing things in a way that is good. And what do I mean by that? There's going to be some obvious, at least initially, I would expect when we do get to meet in person again, there'll be some probably obvious changes. Those things will be, things like water stops, um, number of people in each pace group, and all those types of things, and so much more. But initially, um, there's honestly just currently still one, too much risk. Two, the inability to meet in larger groups. I understand that we can pare things down to one person or 5 people or 10 people, and that kind of falls under the guidance of what's been put out there by both the CDC and then local and even federal uh, government regulations. However, we still have to be able to support that on the road. And what happens on the road is that the number of people, of course, balloons significantly beyond those 5 or 10 people, let's say, in a pace group. So while it is absolutely our goal to get back on the road and get back in person, believe me, I want that more than anything. For the very, at least foreseeable future, that is not going to be an option. But what I will have, and this will start probably as soon as this weekend, sooner if I can get it completely finished. But I mentioned this to some people in the last several weeks. We'll basically have a working document that we will share with everybody. So for be full transparency, you'll see what I'll be working from, and that will show us everything from one, what currently we're seeing as far as allowable things. You will also see a bit about what things would look like if we were to return, let's say today, and then what things would look like as we sort of go down that continuum to, we'll say, quote, getting back to normal. So we expect to have that. We'll expect to have that, out and in front of everyone. Like I said, no later than this weekend, so that you all can kind of see what we see. That document will then be updated at the very least on a weekly basis, and that will be literally for all of you to see. The other thing that we are more than happy to take some suggestions and comments on it as well. So if you see something in that document that you say, "Ooh, that either makes sense, doesn't make sense," or "I have a question about that," or "Hey, I've got a great idea how you might address that particular hurdle," we're also more than happy to take that information as well, because we don't necessarily know any secret that you don't know, is I guess what it really comes down to. But just so you all know that myself, Laura, Leslie, and Mike are working in the background to try to find every possible avenue where we can return to in-person meeting as soon as humanly possible. So that's the reality that we're currently facing, but it's also an intent to get to that as soon as. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that? Good. Everybody's happy. Yep. So Kathy asked a question. Will we email out the workouts early for those who want us to get the runs done in the morning? Kathy, I might have to have you be more specific. So so no later than every Sunday. By the way, last night got out very late only because we were building the backbone of all this, and a lot of registrations were coming in as even as late as midnight last night. So I was trying to get all that information input so everybody would get everything quickly. But basically, Sunday afternoon or evening, you'll get an email from me, and all of that information will be loaded into TeamBuildr. You basically will be able to see your week in advance, so that should all be in there. And I'll go back in and look at the settings, and I'll even put something out about that in the next email, Kathy. But once it's in TeamBuildr, you basically see each week come up. I just don't remember if that triggers on Saturday or Sunday or when that triggers, if you know what I mean, that you'll be
Yeah, no,
maybe.
that answers the question. I wasn't sure if you're gonna be sending out like Tuesday day and like, used to us running Tuesday night, but as long as
No,
I
no,
get it
no, no.
before Tuesday
Nope.
morning, I'm good.
Nope. You'll have the whole week. You'll have everything. Let me put it this way. No later than Monday morning, you will have your entire week, Monday through Sunday, in front of you. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah, for sure. No, great question. And that happens, like I said, kind of, that's in a weird way. I kind of have to do that because the system by default will show you a week at a time. So I will have it in there ahead of that. So not a bad question at all. So let's see. So what else do we have going on here? Now, let's get to some of the important stuff. I'm sure people have questions, which I will again kind of address we'll say the giraffe in the room. The giraffe in the room is, do I know anything secret that you don't know about upcoming races and whether or not they're scheduled, not scheduled? And by the way, I'm saying giraffe in the room because I already used elephant. Thank you. My wife just mumbled under her breath across the table from me that I'm such a dad.
That's my spirit animal.
I made these. It's you. What, are you kidding? By the way, I made all these stupid jokes well before I was a dad, so it was.
Is it Rooney?
Something, yeah. It's just my personality, which isn't great. So the question would obviously come up, like, what's going on with fall races? The answer is I don't know. I do know, I had a fairly lengthy conversation about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, I guess, with the Flying Pig. And they were not terribly forthcoming with information. I probably could glean a couple things just by default. I mean, there was a couple reasons why we were having the conversation in the first place, which by default told me a couple things. But I think the easy answer is they're struggling. They're doing as much as they possibly can. So, I mean, I can speak specifically to the pig. They're doing as much as they possibly can to put on this race. I will tell you that. I mean, their goal is to have the race in October. But they are also being very realistic and understand that that may not be something they are going to control. That may be out of their hands. And what I mean by that is not so much that somebody's going to tell them they can't have the race, but that the circumstances under which they will be operating will make it too difficult for them to have the race. So they're being realistic about that. I don't think they are by any means defeated because, I mean, you guys would have already heard if they had done something. But I think that the goal is to still have the event occur. Obviously, if the event does not occur, they fully intend to have virtual events, which you could or could not participate in, and or I believe they will also offer either full refunds or deferrals to, I presume, next year if that were to be an option, or if that'd be something you wanted to do. Other races, I know many people, a lot of people were intending to do Chicago. I was one of them. That's October 11th, also the same day as the Flying Pig. I would argue that it would appear Chicago is laying the groundwork for either a cancellation or simply deferral to next year. That appears to be where it's headed, but who knows? They have not canceled it by any means, but they have offered cancellations and in some cases refunds along the way here. So I think they're kind of following a very similar path that Boston followed prior to cancellation. So, I would at least, I'd look at it probably the same way as I'd look at the pig. More local races, Queen Bee is obviously the same weekend as the pig and will operate under the same guidance. Indy and Columbus, so Indianapolis Monumental and Columbus. Indy's the early November and Columbus is late October. Same thing, neither one of them have canceled. I don't know Columbus's policy right now, honestly, off the top of my head. I do know Indianapolis, I believe, is offering full refunds if it were to cancel, and or I believe full deferrals to next year if they were to cancel. So you have your choice. You can also do a virtual race with Indianapolis, again, if it were to cancel. So they kind of have the full the full repertoire available to you if you decide you were going to do Indy. And then New York City is still, as we speak, intended to happen. And I'm trying to think if there's any races I'm completely missing. I mean, I'm sure there are. But those are the big ones. At least those are the ones I know that people were either scheduled to run. I'm looking at Paul Siebert right in the middle of my screen, and I know he's doing a race at the end of July, currently still scheduled. And again, guys, it depends on where the race is, the number of people in the race. And when I say, quote, how big the race is it a big organization or a small organization? Small organizations can typically be a little more nimble, and maybe do something last minute that would be different. But, there's so many variables that go into this. I certainly do not envy being a race director right now. It's not real fun. And they're doing everything in their power to keep, their participants happy, of course, sponsors happy, but also, continue their events, and they're obviously struggling to do so. So if and when I hear any updates at all, I will be more than happy to share that with the group, or if you guys have questions about a race or kind of how to approach something, please let me know. I'm happy to give you advice. I'm not looking at Caroline when I say that, because I was doing nothing but giving her advice for weeks on end when I'm sure she didn't really need to hear it. So that's kind of the race environment update. And so, as we look to the season, at the very least, it's going to be a hybrid of, we'll say, remote training, as well as, possibility, we'll say, a hybrid with some in-person stuff if we can make it happen. But one thing that we, again, had wanted to do for a long time in this group, and now, again, have that opportunity, is this concept of sort of building these benchmarking race concepts into the season itself as part of the training. And so for a very long time, we liked this idea, and there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense. Not only does it make sense just from a training standpoint, but the distances of a 5K, a 10K, a 15K, and then of course half marathons and marathons, sort of to culminate the season, because they work very well with our brains, because they're known distances, and most of us have run a 5K, most of us have run a 10K, and many of us have run a 15K, especially in Cincinnati with Heart Mini, and of course the halves and the fulls. So they make a lot of sense to us because it allows us to sort of an easily digestible number to sort of benchmark things. And so you'll hear us use that term a lot, benchmark. And what does that mean? It sort of allows you to establish a baseline for where you're beginning and or where you are getting to during your training season and during the different cycles that make up your training season. So we are referring to it, and we're going to have a little fun with it for sure. It's going to be we'll say a friendly competition until certain people get involved. Chris O'Brien, and we want it to be fun. We want people to have a little competition with it. But what it will basically be is, starting tomorrow or this week, if you can, we ask that you do a 2-mile time trial. And the 2-mile time trial versus, let's say, a 1 mile, one, it gives us a little bit more distance to base some numbers off of. And two, it's a little bit better barometer to your fitness, because most of us, a mile is almost a little too digestible for all of us and allows us to get through it a little almost too quickly. And it's not as good of a predictor of long-term and sort of a full season of training and racing. So the 2-mile time trial for the half marathon, you can do a half mile to a mile warm up. Marathon, we ask that you do a mile. You could even do a mile and a half warm up, but honestly try to keep it around a mile warm up. And then same with the cool down for both groups. Then there will be a 2-mile time trial. We recommend it be on a flat-ish, don't use a hill. You're just fighting yourself on that one. But use relatively flat terrain. And you want to do the 2-mile time trial, and then of course time just the 2-mile portion, so you can at least pull that out of whatever numbers you have. And you want that to be at the warm-up cool down will be at about a 3 to 4 RPE, which means, conversational, easy pace, comfortable, and like a typical warm-up and cool down. And then the 2 mile time probably around 8. You can do a 7 if you need it, but a 7 or 8 RPE, which means much higher intensity. It is not full out. Like, you are not going as fast as you possibly can. That is not what you want to do. So think of it, if this makes sense, to use it you want to go as fast as you can for that distance. All right, so a 2 mile distance, you can't run as fast during the 2 miles as you would, of course, for 100 yards or for a mile or whatever. So don't go out at your mile pace. I'm having a hard time looking at Caroline's face with Jeff just sitting there. It's just killing me. I just saw Jeff pop in there.
Uh-huh.
That was tough. Hi, Jeff. But you want to go out, like, again, once you get that warm up under your belt, you want to go out at a relatively good pace. And so, but again, something that you can maintain. Don't blow the doors off of it for the first mile and then, go from a 9-minute mile on the first one to a, 11.5-minute mile on the second one. Just because that would be kind of crazy. So you want to, again, make sure it's something you can control for the full distance. When you are done, get your time. The only reason you need it timed separately is not because you're going to send me a screenshot or something of your time. But what I do want you to do is have that time, either write it down, save it in your Garmin, put it on your computer, put it on a notepad, whatever. And then later this week, we're going to send out basically a sign-up sheet, which will just be your name, your email, and everything. And then we want you to give us that 2 mile time. That 2 mile time will then be put into a little bit of software that I'm not going to take credit for this. My wife created that will allow us to then send you back out a time predictor for these distances: 5K, 10K, 15K, half, and full marathon. So everybody then will see time predictions based on the 2 miles. Then as we get to those next levels, as we get to the 5K, 10K, 15K, half, and full, you will then be essentially looking at your training, where it was predicted to be, and then, of course, where did you land, right? So you essentially will be chasing, trying to beat those predicted times. And it's not just to beat them. So it's not like you're just going out as hard as you possibly can, like, oh, I just got to beat that time and my training's fantastic. You want to be able to hit those marks because you feel good doing so, if that makes sense. And so it'll be a way to do a lot of things. It'll be a way to check your training, check your performance, and then, of course, share it with the group and have a little fun with it. Competition. We'll have fabulous prizes awarded throughout the season, and then, of course, a big one at the end of the season. And just so everybody knows, it will be a level playing field. So a 6-minute miler will be in the same competition as a 12-minute miler. Like, they will be in the same competition. Though you might say, well, how is that possible? Those numbers will actually be graded. So what you will see is there will actually be some benefit. I know this sounds like we're giving them more than they deserve, but the faster you get, the little bit higher of a weight is added to your times. And what that means is when a 6-minute miler, to go from a 6-minute mile to like a 5:45 mile is huge, like massive, like, next to impossible for a lot of people. Not Chris O'Brien, of course. But the chasing those incremental gains at much higher paces is very difficult. And oh my God, my wife is over here reading me formulas from across the table as I'm talking about.
Rick, you're just telling everybody to do bad now and then do better later, and then you're better on winning.
Yeah.
So just
No.
walk it now and then run later.
You don't want to sandbag it now, because that doesn't do yourself any service. So, but what you will see is you will have those at faster paces get a little bit of a higher weight added to the number. So essentially, it will level the playing field. So everybody will be competing against each other, which is kind of cool, kind of fun. It doesn't give an advantage to anyone, which I kind of like. And we'll play around with it, see what happens. But it will also do a lot for your training and overall accountability in the group as we go through the season. The other nice part is that you can do these distances, the 5Ks, 10Ks, 15Ks, even the half and the full marathon. You can do them on your own. You can do them if there are races being held. So if there's a 5K in your neighborhood and you want to do it the week that we're doing the 5K, have at it. That 5K can be your number. That's completely fine. And when we get to even the half and the full marathon, let's say, Flying Pig, October 11th. If you run the Flying Pig on October 11th and you want to use that number to use for the end of the season, grading that we put in here, perfect. That's fantastic. You can do it on your own. You can do a virtual race, whatever. But that's what's kind of nice about this is it'll give you the flexibility to use real world performances and test it against your training. So it'll be kind of neat. So that's what that's going to be for the season. That's called the BE Grand Prix because we're essentially racing each other, which I like. And so that, again, will start this week with the 2-mile time trial, which, again, will act as that base benchmark. So does anyone have any questions about that part? I know my wife desperately wants to chime in with the scale she created. Do you want to or not really? No, she doesn't want to.
I want to know what Chris is making with his wife in his kitchen.
I don't know. I just like that we see the basically 3/4 empty.
No, I see the beer there. I like the beer. Uh-oh, is he coming over? Is he telling us?
I think he might be telling us. Or he might be turning off his camera again.
What are you cooking?
Laura will tell you what it is. I don't know what it is. What is it?
What is it?
Quesadillas.
Oh, quesadillas.
I'll show you when they're all done.
Yum.
I look forward to it. I mean, you only live a mile away. I'll be over as soon as this is over. It's not far from my.
Exactly. Time trial. Run over. Time trial. There's that.
So that is basically how the season's going to be structured, at least to start. I hope that sort of puts things into perspective for everybody. You are more than welcome to ask any questions about anything I just said. You can ask questions about something I didn't say or if I missed something. The floor is now open for all of you. So have at it. Go. Chris O'Brien, I know you've been itching to say something. Kidding. I mean, you can if you want.
I don't have any questions yet. I just like listening to you talk.
I know. I'm sure you do. This is great. I mean, everybody always says, like, isn't this horrible that we can't meet in person? I'm like, this is exactly what everybody's been asking for years. I'm so sick of listening to Rick Lucan. Like, really? Like, I can't imagine that this doesn't deliver, like, on a long-standing promise that I would shut the hell up at some point.
What are you talking about? Now all we do is hear you talk.
I was going to say that's actually kind of good.
Right? You can't even chit chat, with other people and be told to be shushed because you're talking.
Yeah. Please interrupt.
So Greg, I do have a question. So I just joined the Team Builder thing, and it told me that I was supposed to run 3 to 4 miles today, and the time trial tomorrow. Is that wrong or right or no? Oh, so I better get out there and run today, and then go do time trial tomorrow.
Dude. I'm looking out my window right over here and the sun's setting. As they say in the business, you're running out of daylight.
Got it. All right. I just put out 15, 20 yards of mulch. Does that count?
It counts as mulching. I don't think it. I mean, it depends on how far you had to travel with the mulch.
Wheelbarrow style. Lot.
Count it as a mile. Maybe you got a mile of mulch walking in.
You got a 1/4 acre to land.
Maybe you got 2 miles in. Looks like you got about a 2-mile run left in you for the night. Yeah, I mean, and again, here's the other thing, guys, is that I'm not trying to sell you on the idea that we're not meeting in person by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the things that this does allow for is you have the flexibility, of course, to do this on your own schedule. I mean, that's the nice part about it. One, the Team Builder is super flexible in that way because you can see your whole week and you can kind of play around and look at things as you need them. So if there's no way in heck that you're going to get out on Monday to go do your recovery run, don't. I mean, that's okay. Everything we put in here is obviously recommendations, and it's what we built. It's what we built as the most robust option as far as the training program goes. And we really do want people to continue to train, and we really do want people to continue to have motivation and a plan in front of them to keep them going. So, I think it's a really cool. I think it's a very cool system to use, but I also think it gives us the people on this call, especially a lot of what we're looking for, which is we're all kind of type A people, and we want it sort of planned and in front of us, and yet at the same time the flexibility to make it work into our busy lives. So we get it, and we know you're busy, and we know that it may not be perfect for everybody, but I do think it's a really cool tool, and once you play around with it a little bit, I think you really like it. Hopefully. There you go. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody else want to share a fabulous story? Anybody want to talk about what they've been doing on their COVID vacation? Nothing? Nothing? We're good? All right. So one thing I do want to say before we hang up is Leslie pointed out to me, I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but I did notice after Leslie, of course, told me I noticed. I made a slight, thanks Leslie, I made a little bit of a typo in yesterday's email. It said that these Monday calls would be every other Monday. These will be every Monday. You don't have to attend them. We will typically have it sort of open for people to ask questions. What we'll typically do is just, bring a quick thing like, here's tomorrow's workout. We want to hold them on Monday so we can address the upcoming workout for the following day. If need be, people can ask questions about that or anything they have questions about. It might last 10 minutes. It might last 20 minutes. It might last an hour, whatever you guys want to talk about. So those, the Monday calls will happen every Monday. We will do a Thursday happy hour an hour earlier, so at 7:30 p.m., kind of as we did at the end of last season. We'll do a Thursday happy hour, and that will be hang out, talk, do whatever, and that will be every other Thursday, starting next week. So that's where I crossed my signals a little bit, and I did the Thursday one correctly, but I made the Monday one every other, and it's not. That'll be every Monday.
So Laura Jenkins has that.
Has what?
She has a 24-day running streak. I'm super proud of her.
Woo!
Why don't I ever see Laura Jenkins? I only see you, Chris.
She's right here, Rick.
No, I'm not saying right this moment. I'm saying like out on the road. Hi,
Well,
Laura.
because
I'm a night runner.
I kind of am, like at night, like in the dark.
At like 9, yeah.
Oh, really?
It's hot during the day and I don't want to get up
completely
early.
agree. I used to run at night all the time, actually. I loved it. I used to run at like 10 o'clock at night. It was awesome.
And all those pesky pedestrians have left.
And it's
So today-
it's eerily peaceful. It's
Mhm.
like strangely quiet at night. Like, and in the summer, it's awesome. Like, I love
she ran with a running watch for the first time ever tonight. So anyway, this is very good. This is a good development.
Laura, congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Chris, congratulations to be married to Laura. Well, that was a head nod if I've ever seen one. That was awesome. Yeah, that was totally something that Laura would do. My wife, not Laura Jenkins. All right, guys. Well, if no one has any other questions, I'll give you like a 3, 2, 1. You can ask anything. It's like going once, going twice. Damon looked like he might be chiming in, but it looks like it was just a hand movement. Everyone good? All right.
I was asking your wife if that time trial included having a double stroller in front of you pushing 2 toddlers or not. I'm guessing not.
Sorry. No, the answer is no, but I am looking at your question. I didn't see this. Would it be well served to do it on a track? I'm sorry, you did answer it?
He answered that one too.
Yeah, track would be fast. I mean, track's fine. Actually, the arm letter thing is actually probably not bad because it's it's basically a 2-mile loop.
Yeah.
So if you can get on that loop, I mean, it's very, very close. I mean, it's basically 2 miles once around once around the full Armadillo loop. It's like pretty much dead on.
Yep.
And if you cut the middle, it's basically 1 mile. So you could do like a 1 mile loop and, go nuts or whatever. So yeah, it's a great place to do it. Armletter would be great because it's basically flat and you're not terribly out in the wind because you have enough vegetation around you. So if it is even a little bit of wind, it's not too bad out there. Yeah, but track is fine. The only issue with the track is some people get super bored doing more than a mile on a track. So
Right.
I have
Just
a
the crap.
question, Rick.
Yeah.
You might have already covered this because I came in late, but do we have to do it in a certain time period? Like, does it have to be tomorrow or could it be anytime this week?
No, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out, so on Thursday, I'm going to send out a link to this document that you'll basically enter your time into. So I was saying that you kind of have some flexibility. My recommendation would be that my recommendation would be to do it this week. It doesn't have to quote absolutely be tomorrow. That I'm going to ask you to enter your time basically by the end of the weekend, get your time in there. And the only reason I want that is because I want to be able to start creating this document where everybody can kind of see their predictions and everything else. So you guys are going to send me your time. I'm going to then come back to you with a predictor and you'll be able to see that. And kind of basically the way it's going to be is if you send me your time, you're essentially opting in to be on the leaderboard, if that makes sense. But then you'll see all that information. Everybody will have access to it. So yeah, as long as you get it in this week, that ideally. I mean, if for some reason you got it in next week, you're not going to like ruin anything. I'm just going to, my goal is to try to get this all sort of updated and input, by and out to you guys as soon as possible. So this week is the best.
With the predictors for the longer distance, is that just going to be like directly based off the 2 mile, or is it like, and then what your time would be now, or is it like 2 miles and then accounting for like the training that will happen between now and then?
So it is based on now. So it is so there is, but it's for that exact reason. And as my wife is across from me over here reminding me, I mean, hence the benchmarking concept. So the problem is if you to your point, basically what you're saying is, well, what if we adjusted it? So like once you run the 5K, then does the 5K re-predict the 10K and the 15K, for example? The answer is no, and here's why. Because what you would essentially see is you would be essentially hurting yourself. You're going to now be climbing an even higher ladder as you go along, because let's say you continue to improve with each benchmark, right? You're actually making it that much harder on yourself to continue to improve with each benchmark. And it doesn't account for the piece where you began. So the purpose of the benchmark is to literally establish this baseline so that you can begin to train from here. And then the predictors take into account pacing and everything else. And you're essentially, while I want to use the term, you're kind of racing against everybody else, you're really racing against yourself, because the way this is going to all be ranked is it's going to be as a percentage of your improvement. So the improvement is where the benefit is. That makes sense? So if you kept re-benchmarking, you would actually narrow that improvement dramatically and actually hurt yourself. So it is based on the 2 mile, and everything will predict from there. And that will be the constant through the season. So I'll answer it in a different way. Don't screw up your 2 mile. I'm kidding. I mean, it shouldn't be like blow the doors off of it. This should matter more than anything in the entire world to you, right? But, you want it to be a good, strong 2 miles. Yeah. So and it's also something you can do at the beginning of a season without a ton of training under your belt and not kill yourself. So it's not a 5 mile time trial. So it should be good. It should be a little challenging without putting you over the top. So hopefully that answered the question. Sorry, I'm just reading the questions here. Are we talking about the tracks? Yeah, Laura, do you have any input on, or any of the is it Withrow open? I don't think it is it? So,
Trail's open. I was there the other day.
Sorry, say it again.
Withrow is open.
Okay, it is? Okay. Yeah, so just so you guys know, we live, a quarter mile, not even a quarter mile from Withrow. And so I have seen it open. I have seen people on it. Just be aware, any track, especially if they're part of a high school, which 99% of them are, there's always the possibility somebody might come up to you and say, you can't be on the track. Just be aware of that. And it's not because they don't want somebody on a track, or having fun running or being outdoors or whatever. They actually often fall back to what the high school is doing or what the middle school is doing or wherever you are. So for example, like you can't run on Withrow's track during the middle of a normal school day. So like 2 years ago, if you were to go up to Withrow's track at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, they would come out and kick you off. I got kicked off of Withrow's track. And the answer is, well, why would that be? When school is in session, specifically in this case, it was when school's in session, they are not allowed to have people outside of the school on school grounds, if that makes sense, unless you have a pass and other things. So just be aware that under the current world circumstances with risk factors and whatnot, you may run into a situation where somebody asks you to leave a track. It's unlikely, but it's possible. So just be aware. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Everyone good? All right. Well, guys, it's wonderful to see everybody. I hope this helped sort of, put things into perspective and kind of what we're looking forward to in the next several weeks. We will continue to put information out. If you guys have any questions in the meantime, you can always reach me via email, Facebook Messenger, or text if you want. If you send me a text, please tell me who you are. Otherwise, I just get random texts asking questions and I don't know who it is. But feel free to ask any questions at any time. More than happy to help out and answer it. It's again wonderful to see everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful Monday evening and have a good run tomorrow. Make it count, people. Make it count. All right, guys. Great to see you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, Rick.
Enjoy your quesadillas, Chris and Laura. See you guys.
Bye-bye.